Alright, Chapter 2, Learning During and After Reading. Learning Objectives. In this chapter, you will learn how to outline text, draw maps to show relationships, paraphrase ideas, summarize text, using learning recall strategies. Learning and reading are two different things. Reading is understanding, learning is remembering, recalling what you read. You may have read and understand psychology chapter on motivation, but you're not able to recall all the definition theories, research findings sufficiently well to pass the exam on the chapter. In this chapter, you will learn strategies you both during and after you read would further strengthen your comprehension and ensure you remember what you read. Both understanding and learning occur gradually. As you read, some things immediately understandable, other things become clear as you continue to read after you reread. Or after you reread. Likewise, you do not learn everything at once. To recall everything is important. You will need to think right, put ideas in your own words, review, use your strategies presented in this chapter. Writing is an important learning strategy because it helps information stick into your mind. In this chapter, you will learn to write outlines, draw maps, help you organize, recall information, putting ideas into your own words, condensing ideas are also very useful ways to improve how much you can remember what you have read. So you will learning how to paraphrase and summarize. Finally, the numerous reviews and self-testing strategies will help to retain information preparation for an exam. Outlining to organize idea. Outlining text. Outlining is writing strategy that consists of organizing information, pulling ideas together. It is an effective way to pull together information from two or more sources, your textbook, class lectures, for example. Finally, outlining is a way to assess your comprehension and your strength or your recall. The following tips are right effective with the outline. Read the entire section, then jot down notes. Do not try to outline while you are reading the material for the first time. As you read, be alert of the organization patterns, the patterns that will help you to organize your notes. 3. Record all most important ideas of the brief possible form. 4. Think of your outline as a list of main ideas and supporting detailed selections. Organize it shows how ideas are related to reflect organization of the material. 5. Write in your own words. Do not copy sentences, part of sentences from this selection. Use word short phrases to summarize the idea. Do not write complete sentences. Using your system of indentation to support main ideas in detail is a general rule of the greater importance idea, with the closer is placed on the left margin. Ideas of the lesser importance are indented to appear closer to the center of the page. Your notes are filed with a format like shown. Shows your outline, topic, main idea, supporting detail, 2 facts, a supporting detail, main idea, supporting detail with a supporting detail, and 2 facts. There are further illustration techniques of outline studying with the notes shown in the simple outline below. They are based on paragraphs 1 and 2 of the textbook. Excerpt with the body gestures on page 35. Sample outline, body gestures. A. Kinesthetics, the study of the communication through body movement. B. The 5 types of movement. Emblems, substitute the words. Specific verbal translations, not same across time cultures. Exercise 2, outline. Direction, finish outlining the text, exerts the body gestures on page 33 and 35. For the sake of reading, we'll go on. Mapping to show relationships. Draw maps to show relationships. 2.2. Mapping, the way of drawing a diagram to describe how a topic and related ideas are connected. Mapping is a visual means of learning by writing. It organizes and consolidates information. Section describes 4 types of maps: conceptual maps, process diagrams, timelines, and part function diagrams. A conceptual map is a diagram that presents ideas spatially rather than listed form. It is a picture of how ideas are related. The type of the construction conceptual map right of the topic with the center of the page. Draw lines radiating from the topic, adding most important details related to the topic. Draw new lines with less important details, explain subtopics. The conceptual map of part 1 of the text is shown on the following page. This map shows only the major topics included in part 1. A map can be much more detailed and include more information than one shown, depending on the purpose for drawing it. Chapter 2 shows the learning during and after reading. A conceptual map of this handbook. In the center of the handbook, reading, thinking, and the technology. At 12 o'clock, we're moving around clockwise. We have reading activity, learning during and after reading, vocabulary building, thesis, main idea, supporting detail, transition, organizational patterns, reading and thinking visually, making inferences, critical reading, and reading arguments. Exercise 2, Conceptual Map, Directions. Read the following paragraph, complete with a conceptual map of the present within this ideas contained in the paragraph. Society cannot survive without social institutions. Social institutions set widely and share belief that the norms, procedures necessary for the meeting of the basic need of the society. But the most important institution are family, education, religion, economy, and politics. They have stood the test of time, serving the society well. The family institution leave the countless people that produce, raise children, to ensure they eventually take over the older generation to keep these society going. The educational institution teaches the young people to be effective contributors to welfare, such as order, stability, and prosperity of society. The religious institution follows the spiritual needs, making earthly lives seem more meaningful than more bearable or so satisfying. The economy institution provides food, clothing, shelter, employment, banking, and other good services that we need to love or live. Public institution makes enforcement laws to prevent criminals and other similar forces destabilizing society, and that's by Sociology, brief introduction, 5th edition, Boston, Pearson, Allen, and Bacon, 2003, pages 35 through 36. Alright, you see in the middle we have social institutions widely shared norms and procedure basis. 1, 2, family institution produce, raising children. 3, educational teaches. 6, provides food, clothing, employment, banking, other good services, political institution. And 4, spiritual needs, adds meaning making, and you take those 5 different institutions and fill them in as you would. Alright, exercise 2-3, draw a conceptual map. Drawing a conceptual map of the text history of the body, gesture 35 through 37. The process diagram visually describes the steps, variable the parts of the process, makes learning easier. For example, the diagram on the following page visually describes the steps in the process conducting research. Shows learning during and after reading. A sample process diagram, the research process and print diagram. And we'll move from the red blocks to the right, and then you will go encyclopedia overview of topic, then the bibliography, and identify outstanding resources, 3 books and basic information, 4 periodicals, detailed information, current information, and lastly specialized source from a specialized or specific information. Exercise 2-4, drawing a process diagram. The following paragraph describes the bill becoming a law with the reading of the paragraph, and then complete with the process diagram that illustrates the procedure. Federal criminal laws most originate with the House of Representatives or the U.S. Senate. A senator or representative introduces the proposal known as a bill, create a new law modifying existing law. Merits for the bill are debated with the House or Senate, and a vote is taken. If the bill is received with a majority of vote, it is passed to the other House of the Congress, where it is debated and put to vote. If any changes are made, amendment of the bill must be returned to the House of Congress and when originated and voted on again. This process continues until the House and Senate agree on a single version of the bill. The bill is then forwarded to the President, who can sign the bill into law, veto it, or take no action, in which the case the bill dies automatically when Congress adjourns. If the President vetoes the bill, the Congress can pass the law over the President's veto by a 2/3 vote of both houses. With approval of the President, Congress, or by Congress alone, a bill becomes a law when it is published in the U.S. criminal codes. And that was Fajan James A. Criminal Justice, 2nd edition, 2007, reprinted electronically reproduced, permission, Pearson's Education, Incorporated, New York, New York. And it shows the drawing process diagram with the senator representative that introduced the bill, debated in the House or Senate. Vote is taken for the majority or the change is made, passes made by both House and the Senate, goes to the President, which he can either veto, sign the bill, veto the bill, no action. If he vetoes, it becomes published in the U.S. Criminal Code. If it vetoes the bill, returns the paragraphs passed by 2 or 3 votes, or is taken out of action, and no action results in no law. Alright, Chapter 2, Learning During and After Reading, Exercise 2-5, Drawing and Process Diagram 2, the description, direction. The following paragraphs describe the body respond with the threat of the read paragraph, and then draw with the process diagram and the describe the response sequence compared with the diagram and those several other students. Body response drive of the general adaptation syndrome. 3 stages during the first stage of the alarm reactions, the sympathetic nervous system increase with the activity, what is known as the fight or flight syndrome. Your pulse dilate, your heart rate increases, your bronchial passages dilate. In addition to the blood sugar increase, the digestive system slows, your blood pressure rises, the blood flow of the skeletal muscles increases. At the same time, endocrine system produces more cortisol, a hormone that influences metabolism and your immune response. Cortisol is critical to your body's ability to adapt and to cope with the stress. In second stage, the stage of resistance, your body system returns to the normal function with the psychological effects, the sympathetic and nervous system stipulation with the excessive cortisols are gone. You have adapted to stimulus, no longer produce the stress for you are coping. Many of the factors contribute to the ability of coping. These include your physical, mental health, education, experience, support system, and family and friends and co-workers. Exhaustion. Third stage general adaptation syndrome occurs when the exposure to the stressors prolonged or the stressors of particular severe. At this point, the individual has lost ability to resist, adapt stressors, and become more seriously ill as a consequence. Fortunately, most individuals do not reach this stage. This is by Lemire, Daniel J. O. Keefe, Pinnacle M. Grant Harvey, T. Murray, Bob Bergen, Bren, John David, Dixon, Edward, and Emergency Care 12th edition, 2012, reprinted, electronically reproduced, permission per person, education, Incorporated, New York, New York. Alright, the timelines used. Stay with the topic sequence order or events with the central focus of the timeline. Help with the organized visual information. For example, the following line display with the sequence major events during the presidency of Franklin D. Roosevelt. Alright, the sample timeline show Franklin D. Roosevelt elected president in 1932, 1933, emergency breaking relief and prohibition repeal, 1934, Security Exchange Commission authorized, 35, work progress, administrative hires unemployed, the Wagner Act, Collective Bargaining, Social Security Act passed, and FDR president re-elected in 1936, 1937, auto worker strike, FDR loses court packing battle, and recession begins in 1938, minimum wage set at 40 cents an hour. Alright, directions 2-6. The following passage review of the chronological events of the public school desegregation. Read the selection, then draw with the timeline with the help to visualize these historical events. Desegregation schools. Schools became primary over the Civil Rights Act with the NAACP concentrated first universities within the administration qualified African American state and graduate and professional schools. Led by Thurgood Marshall, the NAACP lawyers are attacked with the segregation of the public schools, challenging Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896. The Supreme Court decision upheld with the constitutionally separate but equal public facilities. Marshall argued that even in substantial equal, the separate schools did profound psychological damage to African American children. Those violated the 14th Amendment in 1954 with the case Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka. The summary court unanimously agreed with the Chief Justice Earl Warren, recently appointed President Eisenhower, flatly declared separate educational facilities inherent, unequal, and divide grade school. Children solely because of their race, he argued, with the generate for the feeling of inferiority to the status of the community and may have affected the hearts and mind with a way unlikely ever to be undone. Despite the sweeping language, Warren realized that changing historic patterns of the segregation would be difficult. Accordingly, in 1955, the court ruled the school desegregation schools to proceed with all deliberate speed, left the details lower to federal courts. Deliberate speed provided them agonizingly slow. The border states quickly complied with the court's ruling, but the Deep South responded with a massive resistance. The Citizen Council organized with the Britain Racial Separation 101 represented with a center sign with a soft Southern Manifesto of the 1956 denouncing with a broad decision with a clear abuse of the judicial power. The school boards found ways to evade court's rulings, and the tactics led to long dispute. Federal courts by 1960, less than 1% of the black children in the Deep South attended school with whites. This was Brands, H.W. Brent, T.H. Williams, A.R.A. Hal, Gross, R.G.L.J. American Story History, United States, 2nd edition, 2012, replaced electronically produced permission for Pearson Education Incorporated, New York, New York. Alright, part and function diagram. In this course of the detailed view of the description, classification, physical objects label, the drawing of the important learning tool for the human anatomy of psychological course. For the example, the easiest way to learn parts and function of the brain is to draw with the study of the if you would the sketch for the brain, test your recall with each of the draw part as a function. Alright, drawing part and figure 2.7, the drawing a part and function diagram. The direction following paragraph describes the model showing with the different type of people tend to live in the urban area of the paragraph of the draw of the diagram until with the help of the visual eye of the bottom urban structure. In 1923, a sociologist E.W. Burgess created the Concentric Zone module to describe internal structure as the cities. According to the model, cities grow out over the central area series in 5 concentric rings, like growth rings of the tree. The innermost zone of the central business district, where non-residential activities are concentrated. A second ring of the zone is transitional, contains industrial, poor quality housing. Immigrants city first live in the zone with the high-rising apartment buildings. Third rising zone of working class homes contain modest older houses occupied stable working class families. Fourth zone has newer and more spacious houses for middle class families. Commuter zone beyond the continuous build-up area where the city is inhabited and people who work in the center but choose to live in the bedroom communities for commuters. That's Robinstein James, Contemporary Human Geography, 2nd edition, 2012, reprinted, electronically reproduced, permission, Pearson, Education, New York, New York. Alright, paraphrasing ideas. Paraphrasing is a restatement of the passage ideas in your own word. The author meaning of the pertaining to the wording, not the author's you. The paraphrase can be you with any of the following. Make a passage mean clear and often more concise. Explain portions of the text which exactly detailed comprehension is required. Understand the difficult and complicated material. Learn and review the material high level. The recall is needed. Below the paraphrase in paragraph, what is crime on page 51. Figure 2.1 shows a sample paragraph, and then we'll read the paragraph on the left first. It says, essential crime is a young person's game. The idea is support with the relation between the age and crime that indicate the majority arrests peak with between the ages of 15 and 25. The half of the portion of this point foul with a slow and but steady decrease throughout the life of the arrest data from the other cultures, times, history, and supports claim. Now, the paraphrase would be age's likelihood to commit with the crime related with the crime is most committed with the young people. Most areas are made with the people between 15 and 25 years old. After the age increase, there is a steady decrease in arrests. The pattern is consistent with the data of the other structure of the other than historical periods. And that's Carl John Thinking, Sociology, 1st edition, 2010, reprinted, electronically reproduced, permission, Pearson, Education, Incorporated, New York, New York. How to paraphrase. You have the following suggestion to paraphrase effectively. Read slowly, carefully, read the material entirely before writing anything. As you read, pay attention to the exact meanings and relationships among ideas. Paraphrase sentence by sentence. Read each sentence, express the key idea in your own words. That means reading an original sentence and looking away, writing your own sentence with a reread of the original and adding anything you missed. Do not try to paraphrase word by word, instead working word the ideas. For the words in paraphrase you're unsure that they are not words you feel comfortable using. Check the dictionary, locate more familiar meaning. You may combine several original sentences into more concise paraphrase. Alright, exercise 2.8, paraphrasing. Direction. Read the following paragraph, paraphrase the following, answer for the questions, and answer for the questions about the paraphrase. Use the sounds. The use of sounds can be effective form of the communication, but the message implication differ across the culturally. Siberian households, lowest status person in marrying daughter, and she tends in the marrying daughter. She tends to speak very little. However, the silence does not also indicate the powerlessness. American courts comparison of the speaking frequency between judge, jury, and lawyers shall show the lawyers who have the least power speak the most, while silent juries hold the most power. That's Miller, Barbara D. Cultural Anthropology, 2nd edition, 2002, reprinted, electronically reduced, permission, Pearson, Education, Incorporated, New York, New York. Paraphrase 1 would be silence carries a message as well as shift the forms of formal communication. Young man, young married Siberian woman speaks very little. Lawyers who are powerless speak a great deal, and the jury which is most powerful is silent. Paraphrase number 2, silence is a way to communicate, but its meaning varies with the culture. Cultural Siberian women had lowest status in their husband's family and speak very little. American courts, however, the most powerful group. The jury is silent, in which least powerful attorneys speak the most. Paraphrase 3. Silence has meaning. Siberian woman speaks very little, indicating low status. Lawyers speak a great deal. while your jury is silent. Which of the best paragraphs goes? 1. I picked 1 because it emphasizes the amount of deal with the courts. Represents the idea of silence as some marriages do. Alright, exercise 2 now, paraphrase 2, write the paraphrase, and 11 in the reading of what is a crime on page 50, and for the sake of reading the book, we're going to not go back on those exercises. Summarize and condensing ideas. Summarize text. A summary, brief statement of the review of the key points of what you have read with the condensing of the author's ideas of the arguments. Finish the sentence with the written in your own words. A summary contains only the gist of the text. Limited explanation, background information, supporting detail. Writing on a summary is step by on recording the author's idea. A summary must pull together the writer's idea with condensing, grouping them, and then before writing a summary, but for sure with your understanding of the material and have identified with the writer's major points, then use the following suggestions. How to summarize. At the first step of this, highlight, write brief notes on the material. 2. Write one sentence that states the writer's overall concern with the most important ideas to ask yourself with what one topic of the material is about, what point the writer is making it about, what the topic of the sentence will be the top of the sentence of the summary. 3. Be sure this paraphrase you with your own words rather than the author. 4. Review of the major supporting information the author gives to explain the major idea. 5. Amount of the detail that you include, if any, depends on the purpose of the writing the summary. For example, if you're writing a summary of a television documentary or research paper, might be the detail that if you're writing it to a jog of memory for a class discussion. 6. Normal present ideas of the summary in the same order in which they appear in the original material. If the writer presents a clear opinion, expresses an attitude toward the subject matter, include that in the summary. If the summary is for your own use only and is not submitted as an assignment, do not worry about the sentence structure. Some students prefer to write summaries using words and phrases rather than complete sentences. Chapter 2, Learning During and After Reading Continued. A sample summary of the textbook body gestures, which appears on page 35 and 37. A sample theory of the nonverbal messages can be communicated with the body gestures. Kinesthetic study of the communication of the body movement. The classified of the movements and emblems. Illustrators effect display of the regulators and adapters. Emblems take place of words. Illustrators complement and enhance verbal message, whether they also improve the recall. After effect display facial expression, communication, and emotions, either intentionally or unintentionally. Regulators are body gestures that help complete control of the conservation. Second signals about what you want to speak to do. Adapters are unintentional movements for the satisfy with the needs. Include the self adapters, which give the physical comfort, with the alter adapters, which will respond to the action. Object adapters, in which manipulating an object, and usually in a negative way. Alright, 210 summarize. Complete the following summary with the passages of page 64. And then you refer up to this, like body's response to nonverbal messages, first called emblems. Exercise 211, we're going to skip summarize 2, which would be summary of the section social class crime, paragraph 12.5 of the article, What is Crime, page 51. For the sake of reading the book chapter, we're moving on. Using learning and recalling strategies. Using learning recall strategies. When you finish reading with a chapter, your job is done. You understand the material. You have not learned it. And review the most essential part of reading and learning. In Chapter 1, we learned the SQ3R method in question self-testing, reviewing important parts of the system. Immediate review. Forgetting occurs the most rapidly right after the reading. After learning, immediately review means reviewing new information as soon as possible after you hear or read it. Think immediate review is a way of fixing into your mind what you have learned. In some ways, immediate review. Test yourself as you read. This is a precise step of the survey. Question, read, recite, and review system you learned in Chapter 1. Asking answer questions is an active strategy. It helps you cement information into your memory. Review the textbook chapter. Assume that the finished reading of the review of the step of the SQ3R system. Do this reading as each chapter heading of the answer for the question is formed. Also be sure to reread the summary. Review your lecture notes as soon as possible after taking them. The review will help ideas stick in your mind. Review all new material again at each end of each day, both text chapters. Lectures note this review will help you pull together information, make it more meaningful. Periodic review. To keep from forgetting material you have learned, you will need to review it several times throughout the semester. Of the periodic review means the returning and quickly reviewing previously learned material on a regular basis. Suppose you learn a material in the first 3 chapters of criminology text during the first 2 weeks of the course. Unless you review the material regularly, you are likely to forget and have you learn it by the time the final exam is given. Therefore, you should establish periodic review and schedule which you quickly review the chapters every 3 weeks or so. Final review. Final review means making a last check of the material before the text exam. This should not be a lengthy session. Instead, it should be quick, once over everything you learned. Final review helpful makes it because it fixes in your mind what you have learned. Be sure that the scheduled final review is possible to examine in which you will need to recall the material. Building intent for the remember. As you read the text assignments or important information form in which the less important continuously asks, answer the question of the following. How important is the information will you need to know for the exam? If the key idea of the explanation of the key idea is what did the writer include? Organizing and categorizing. Information is organized and it has pattern and structure is easier to remember the material the randomly arranged. One effective way of organizing information is categorize it to arrange it in the groups according with similar characteristics. Imagine you're reading an essay of a discipline in the public high school. Instead of learning one long list of reason for the disruptive of the student behavior, you might divide the reason into groups such as peer conflict, teacher-student conflict, and so forth. Associating ideas. Associating involves connecting new information, previously acquired knowledge. For instance, the reading about divorce in sociology class and trying to remember the list of the common causes. You might try to associate each cause with a person you know with exhibits of problems. Someone caught with a divorce, lack of the communication between the partners. You might remember the thinking of the couple you know with the lack of the communication have the relationship, the difficulties. Using a variety of sensory modes, your sensory, sight, hearing, and touch can all help you remember what you read. Most of the time, most of you just one sense sight with as you read. However, if you're able to do more than one sense, you will find that you recall it easier. Activities such as highlighting, note-taking, outlining involving your sense of the touch, reinforcement of the learning, or if you have a particular difficulty remembering something, try to use the auditory sense as well. You might try to repeat the information out loud, listening to someone else repeat it. Visualizing or creating the mental picture. If what you read often aids recalls the events of the people, process, the procedures, create a mental image. For more abstract ideas, create the map, diagram, how the ideas relate. For example, suppose you're reading about the invasion privacy of learning that there are arguments for and against the storage of personal data about each citizen by online companies like Google. You will create a visual image of the two lists of information advantages and disadvantages. Using mnemonic devices. Memory tricking the devices are called the mnemonics. They usually help them recall list factual information. You might use the rhymes such as one you remembering the number of the days each month, 30 days half past September, 30 days half September, April, June, November, and so on. Another device involves the making of the word phrase in which each letter represents the item trying to remember. If you remember Roy C. Be a bit, for an example, you will be able to recall the colors of light spectrum, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. And then exercise 2.2 would be using recall strategies, and we might not do this one. Read each of the following situations, choose the strategy, suggest for each of the situation, briefly explain how you would apply the strategy. For example, the economics you would be applied with the definition of the four-term mark with the provide key feature example to each of the type. You have read each of the assigned chapters once, and you now have ready to speak. You describe the organizational characterization using a variety of sensory modes. Could you help to learn these details? You could do a map or an outline, an environmental science course reading, especially the deforestation class discussion, witness the loss due to fire, urban development, family trip to Colorado. Describe how you would build an intent with a remember the association of the prayer, discuss and the different causes of the deforestation, can compare and contrast, and also with a timeline. And for an anatomy physiological example, you must be able to identify with the bones of the wrists of the hand. Describe how you would do mnemonic devices, visualization, learns the name, the location, wrists, and the bones. Basically, you could use a small list with the pneumatic devices, and obviously a picture with abbreviated version of the bones in a pneumatic device. Alright, Chapter 2, Learning During and After Reading. Summary of learning objectives. And then we're going to read on the left to the right, and then the right statement. Outline text. What is outlining? Outlining can help you to organize information, ideas, pull together information from the two more sources, instead of the comprehension strength of the recall. Draw maps to show relationship. What is mapping? What are the types of map? Mapping is a way of the diagram showing to describe how the topic related to issue, connect with the types of maps, include the conceptual map process for the diagram, timelines, and part function diagrams. Paraphrasing. What are paraphrasing? Why is paraphrasing useful? Paraphrase restates the passage ideas in your own word. Paraphrasing is a useful portion of the text, exact detail of the comprehension required the upful understanding complicated material that is statistically complex, poorly written, overlap, formal, and base. Summarize text for the purpose of the summarized brief statement of review of the key points of what you have read and condense the author's idea of the arguments in the sentence and written in your own ideas. 2.5. Use learning and recall strategies. What learning and recall strategies useful for a textbook reading? Learning and recall strategies include immediate review, periodic review, final review, building an intent with a remember, organizing category, association, using a variety of sensory modes and visualization and mnemonic devices. Chapter 3, Vocabulary Building.